Starting today on page 276, Iggeres HaKodesh. So we are examining the Maimer Chazal, the HaKodesh, Kilu Eved Avodah Zarah. What does it mean that, why is it that getting angry is tantamount to Avodah Zarah? And the Rabbi explains that what is Avodah Zarah? Avodah Zarah is a loss in belief in the Achdus Hashem, the fact that there is one Hashem and He controls everything. And when you get angry, you are, at least at the moment, you are losing your belief, because if you were to believe that everything is from Hashem, even something which is done to you by someone else, a Baal Bechira, it's all from Hashem, when you believe in that, you don't get angry. Because everything is preordained by Hashem. Then Alter Rebbe takes it even a little further. We ended off last week with. Alter Rebbe brings down the story of David HaMelech and Shimi ben Gera. And you have over there that when Shimi ben Gera was verbally abusing David HaMelech and throwing stones at him, and Avishai wanted to go and kill him, and David HaMelech says to him, he says, no, let him curse. Ki Hashem amar li kalel. Hashem told him to curse. And I'll tell you about it. What does it mean Hashem told him to curse? Where, when, what did Hashem tell him to curse? And I'll explain what does that mean. That means everything comes from Hashem. The idea to curse comes from Hashem. No idea falls into your head out of nowhere. It comes from Hashem.
Words have power.
Sorry?
Words have power.
Right, but that's not what we're talking about. The idea to do that curse, where does it come from? But the fact of that which fell in your mind comes from Hashem. At the moment when Shimi was cursing him, at that very moment, Hashem was talking him into existence. It's not shaykh to say that he could have done something which Hashem didn't agree it should happen. And therefore David said, I'm not getting angry. Now, once again, we always have to go back and say, Shimi ben Gera did a horrible thing, and it was against the Ratzon Hashem. But that was his cheshbon with Hashem. That was his cheshbon. He made a bad choice. But David was saying that obviously if it happened for me, it was nigzam and Hashemayim should happen to me, because otherwise it couldn't have happened. Because Hashem wouldn't have allowed something He didn't want to happen at the moment when He's busy creating Shimi ben Gera. And we are now holding Ukinoida. The first word line is Mamash, page 276. I think 12 lines on the bottom of the page. Now we are going to go into an entire discussion about the perpetual creation. Those of you who are veterans over here have been around for a while. We had a very, very long conversation about this when we learned Shayichud V'Emunah. Shayichud V'Emunah is very much about this idea, especially the first parts of Shayichud V'Emunah. Dr. Rebbe talks about this. Now, here, this is going to be a very similar idea. In fact, when they were trying to figure out when the Alter Rebbe wrote this letter, so because there's no date on this letter, at least in the letters that we got, in the copies that we have. So one of the arguments that it had to have been, the Alter Rebbe had to have written it before Tanya was printed. Tanya was printed on the 20th of Kislev in the year 1796. And when Tanya was first printed, it contained the Likutei Amarim and the Sharichut V'Emunah. Now, had the Alter Rebbe already printed Tanya, it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't have referred to that. He would have said, as we explained in Tanya, in the second period of Tanya. He doesn't make any such reference, which seems to imply that that this was written before the Tanya was published, before the end of 1796. And there are a lot of lines that are here that are also over there. So you could say that Alter Rebbe, when he wrote Shayichud V'Emunah, took lines from this letter, or perhaps it was already existing then in manuscript before it was printed, and Alter Rebbe took from the existing manuscript.
The whole thing was printed together?
The first two parts. The first two parts of Tanya were printed together.
And the letters that we're going through were circulated individually.
Yes, and these were printed with the Tanya after Alter Rebbe passed away. A year after Alter Rebbe passed away, Alter Rebbe's sons republished the Tanya, an expanded version of the Tanya, and included Iggeres HaKodesh and Kuntres Achen. Yes.
But Shimi's father was a ger?
No, Gera. Last time, Shimi ben Gera. Gimel Reish Aleph. No, not a Gera.
I know Ger, but I thought maybe this.
No, Shimi was from Shevet Binyamin.
Okay.
Yeah. So, that's not a stereotype in being a possibility of being a Ger, but yeah. We mentioned last week, he was, yeah. Now, what is this idea? So we'll do this idea first outside and then we'll do it inside. And again, for those of you who were here when we learned Shayichud V'Emunah, it's going to ring a bell. The pasuk says, "Lo'olam Hashem dvarcha nitzav b'shamayim." So pasuk in Tehillim, in Kapitel Kuf Yites. Lo'olam Hashem dvarcha nitzav b'shamayim. What does that mean? Pasuk Pshat, that Hashem, your words, they exist forever in heaven. The Baal Shem Tov explained it's actually also explicitly stated this idea in Medrash Tehillim. But nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe cites it in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. There are several different reasons given. But sometimes when someone said something consistently and made it a bedrock, a foundation of his life view, so it can be attributed to him even if it was said earlier. One example we have is in Pirkei Avos. That Shmuel HaKatan Hayoimer. What's the? Everyone's quoted. Hillel would say this, and Shammai and Akiva and Tarfon. Hillel HaKatan Hayoimer. Shmuel HaKatan Hayoimer. V'nefeil Eivecha Al Tismach. That's a pasuk. What Shmuel HaKatan would say, but that's what he would say. He was always saying that pasuk to the point that we're quoting him when we say that pasuk.
In Pirkei Avos?
Yeah. So the same thing over here. This became the Baal Shem Tov, one of his big ideas. One of the Baal Shem Tov's big ideas was that the words, we know the world was created with words. The world was created with Hasar Mamanos, with 10 utterances. So one might think that 5,783 years ago, Hashem uttered the 10 utterances. He said these 10 statements. You hear Akia, right? The world, and then the sky came into existence. That's it. So all Hashem had to do, had to say it once, and that's it. Hashem says no. That's it. Hashem says, "Lo'olam Hashem devarcha nitzav b'shamayim." Those words that Hashem said, you hear Akia, they're still in the heavens. Because if those words, if Hashem were to stop saying those words for a moment, the worlds, the heavens would stop existing. Everything in this, not only about the heavens, but everything that exists, it exists only because the Asara Mamaris is constantly pushing it into creation, pushing it into existence. Yeah.
Netzav means standing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does that apply by other words Hashem says in the Torah?
Maybe, but that's not the conversation.
Okay.
Here we're talking about regarding the Asara Mamaris. Yeah. And as Alter Rebbe explains extensively in Shaykh's Vamuna, it's not only the Asar Mamaris is 10 specific things, but everything is created by the Asar Mamaris because the words of the Asar Mamaris through the Chilufim and Temuris and Tzirufim and Gematrias, as we explained at length in Perikal of Shaykh's Vamuna. Now, in the beginning of Shaykh Vamuna, where's the Alter Rebbe trying to take this? Shaykh Vamuna is based on the pasuk of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Just like Likutei Amarim is based on the pasuk Kikar V'Elecha Adavar Miyod B'Ficha V'Avcha L'Tzaysei. So Shaykh Vamuna is based on the pasuk of Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem. And Shaykh Vamuna is trying to explain the idea of Achdus Hashem, the absolute unity of Hashem. We say that Ki Hashem Hu Elokim B'Shamayim Mimav V'Aretz Mitochas Ein Oid. There's nothing else. What? No, Ein Oid. There is no Mulvade. Ein Oid. It's a different part. You're talking about the pasuk Ata Aresa. Right. See, so he disproved our case. He said it's the pasuk from Aleinu, which is exactly what I said. Like Alter Rebbe quoting it from the Baal Shem Tov instead of the Sheikh HaTev.
What did you do to Sasson?
Sasson, no one does anything to Sasson. Sasson is Sasson. There's only one Sasson.
That's true.
Yeah. So, what does it mean that? What does it mean Enid Mulvadi? What does it mean there's nothing Ein Oid Enid Mulvadi? What does that mean? What do you mean there's nothing else other than Hashem? I'm looking around the room. I see a million things.
Yeah, but
The million things are subject of the creation.
There's
Everything else depends on God. God doesn't.
He's the one creating.
God is and doesn't depend on anything else to be.
it's a
okay, but there's something else. We don't say Ein Oid. By the way, that's what you mentioned. There's the Ein Oid Enid Mulvadi. So this talks about Enid Mulvadi means there's nothing that's apart from him, aside from him. Ein Oid means there's nothing else. Nothing else. So what does it mean? There was a French philosopher. His name was René Descartes. No? Reuven, you learned about him in yeshiva?
No.
No? famous philosopher. Probably his most famous saying that he once said is, "I think, and therefore I am."
Oh.
What does that mean? He's like, does anything? He said, "I'm starting from ground zero. I'm not taking anything for granted. Does anything exist? I don't know. Maybe my perceptions are fooling me. But the one thing I know exists is me. Why?
Because he thinks.
Because I think. What does that mean? My perception might be fooling me, but my perception exists. I have to have a perception. Everything else might be just a figment of my imagination, but I have an imagination. So the one thing that exists is me and my imagination. Everything else I don't know."
It's like yesh, where's yesh man?
So, what does it mean, Einoid? There's so many things in the room, and all the things in the room, the most important thing is me, because I think. Right? I'm the biggest yes that there is.
Ooh.
Do you agree, Alan? Do you agree that I'm the biggest yes that there is?
We think that way, but it's not really so.
So who is the biggest yes in this room?
Hashem?
Okay.
Mike
We have a
goes-
holy
But that's the
joke.
punchline. That's
No, my point is, this is
That's-
an argument that we all have. Everyone here in the room thinks they're the biggest yes. And I'll prove it to you that you think you're the biggest yes. In your estimation. By the way, you're wrong, because really I'm the biggest yes.
Oh,
Which is this morning when you woke up.
yeah.
And you think, oh, Rabbi Silberberg is probably hungry now. Was that your first thought? Or did you think, nah,
No,
I'm hungry.
No, I wasn't thinking about food. I was thinking about that I don't want to get out of bed. I'm tired.
Ooh, all right. Did you think that maybe Rabbi Silberberg doesn't want to get out of bed because he's tired? Why were you thinking about me?
All right, tomorrow I will. Should I call you? All right, 6:30. I'll call
And
you.
you're going to think about me. You know why you're going to think about me? Because you want to be proven right. It's again about your yes. What am I trying to say? To say that the table is Eined Mulvada, okay, that I can take. The cup is but me, ich bin a Metzias. We are every one of us, the biggest Metzias there is myself, right? What does it mean, Einoid? What does it mean? So Alter Rebbe explains, and we're going to do this inside, but Alter Rebbe explains in Shaykh V'Amuna that no, the world doesn't exist. The world doesn't exist. I don't exist. You don't exist. I see it. I feel it. It's the words of Hashem. It's the Asar Mamaris. The Asar Mamaris is constantly pushing the world into existence, which means that the world doesn't exist.
Wait, that's contradictory.
It's
It's
contradiction.
You just said the Sarmamos
Creating
are
existence.
pushing it to exist, so it does exist.
I know.
It does exist.
No, it doesn't. Let me explain.
It's there.
Let me explain. I'll give you two mashalim to bring out this point. Mashal number one is a mashal that's brought on Chassidus. Mashal number two is not brought on Chassidus.
Let me take your hand.
We'll see soon why, but probably wasn't brought on. Mashal number one is,
Oh, sorry.
imagine we're sitting here and we're learning,
I can see.
and a rock comes flying through the window.
A what?
A rock. Do we look at it in absolute amazement and wonder and say, wow, a flying rock? I've never seen it. Did you know that there's such a thing as a rock that flies? Look at that. It's flying. No, we don't say that. What do we say?
Calling the police if someone,
We say, let's call the police and find out who is the idiot
some hater is
that at
throwing
the
a rock
semi
into
was throwing
the
a rock,
show.
right? Why? Maybe it's a flying rock. Not maybe. It is a flying rock.
No, it's a shkacha pratis.
It is a flying rock. But what?
That's not the point of the rock.
The rock is flying, yes, but is it a flying rock?
No.
If you were to take it into the laboratory to examine it and all its properties, even if somehow you were able to examine it while it's flying, is it any different than a rock that's lying on the ground, which is not a flying rock? Same thing?
No.
So what's shot? The rock is being flown. It's not a flying rock.
Someone threw it.
Because a rock doesn't fly. When we establish that the world does not exist on its own, what does that mean? That means that the world doesn't exist. It is being existed. If it is being existed, if it is being pushed into existence, then what's really the only thing that exists?
Hashem.
Hashem. The world doesn't exist. Because if that Asar Mamaros, leave it for a second, it wouldn't exist, which means it does not own the quality of existence. If it owned the quality of existence, it wouldn't be the Varavaya. It doesn't exist. It's existing. It's being existed. Just like the rock is being flown. I'll give you another mashal. These are, by the way, these are all stuff. Well, I'm sitting here wondering who remembers this. These are all mashal we spoke about that. A mashal that I like to use is a mashal of a projector.
Oh, you used up.
Ah, see? Okay. So there's a picture on the wall. There could be a picture on the wall. Is there a picture on the wall? Yeah. But what if, instead of having a picture, I have a projector over here? And the projector is projecting a picture on the wall. Is there a picture on the wall?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, I know, you're both right. You couldn't go wrong on that one.
Well, it's the same idea that, that the picture on the wall is only because of the projector.
The moment that I flip on the switch on the projector, it's not there. So it isn't there, because if it was there, why would I take off the projector?
It's blinking.
Really, the only thing that exists is the projector and the light that comes from it. It doesn't really exist. It's there. It's being projected there. It doesn't really exist on the wall. The Eibishter, Hashem, is the projector, and we are all being projected into existence. So we don't own it, and therefore, what's the therefore? And therefore, ain't it Movada? All there is the Eibishter. Let's put it in somewhat different words. Let's say you walk into a room and it's an empty room. Empty room. Nothing in there except for a projector projecting a picture on the wall. And someone asks you, what's in the room? Would you say, oh yeah, the room is empty. There's two things there, but there's a projector and a picture. Would you say that?
Say it again?
Again, imagine you walked into an empty room. There's nothing there except for a projector sitting on the floor, and it's projecting a picture onto the wall. And then you walk out, someone asks, what's in the room? Would you say, oh, there's two things in the room?
No, one thing.
There's a projector, and then there's a picture on the wall.
No, one.
No, there's one thing there's the projector. That's all there is. There is no picture on the wall. It's just a projector. And the same thing over here. You have such a bracha, by the way. You don't have to say anything. You give a look, and I know right away, Sheldon's not happy.
He's shining
ESP.
You can't sell them. You can't sell them in Brooklyn Bridge.
Doesn't agree with it.
Yeah, no, you're sharp. Anyways, the bottom line
light.
is,
Everyone had a bridge overpass.
I found out there's one way, by the way, to get him to not be upset by what I say. Before I say it, I say, Sheldon, I know you're not going to agree with me, then everything goes
Yeah, he
smooth.
did that Monday night, and I said to him, I don't know why he said.
Anyways, so the same thing is there's Eibishter, that's it. There's a world, that's like the picture on the wall. It's not a Metzias. It's not a Metzias. In Shari Yichud Vamuna, what's the Alter Rebbe doing with that information? Alter Rebbe is taking in the direction of Emid Movade. Over here, and although there the Alter Rebbe mentions Hashgacha Prates, but there it's more of a derech agav. But over here, the Alter Rebbe, the place where Alter Rebbe is going with this letter is not about Achdus Hashem. That's the Achdus Hashem is the topic of Sheikh Lamuneh. This letter over here, so far, where are we going? We're talking about not being angry. Why aren't you supposed to be angry? Because you're supposed to believe in Hashgacha Prates. Now we know the Baal Shem Tov, there are a few big ideas that are associated with the Baal Shem Tov. One of the big ideas associated with the Baal Shem Tov is the idea of Hashgacha Prates. It was a very big koch, a big chiddush of the Alter. Baal Shem Tov also had a chiddush in the area of Hashgacha Prates, but that was one of the big ideas of the Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus is the idea Hashgacha Prates of everything. Another big idea from the Baal Shem Tov was this idea of what we call Hisavos Timidus, which means perpetual creation. These two are correlated. These two are connected one with another. When we say Hashgacha Prates, how do we know there's Hashgacha Prates? Maybe there is not Hashgacha Prates. Maybe Hashem doesn't micromanage everything. How do I know that when I have a hole in my sock, that it's because Hashem orchestrated there should be a hole in my sock? Maybe Hashem has bigger fish to fry. Maybe he has bigger things to worry about than whether I have holes in my socks or not. What's the hechrich that there's Hashgacha Prates? And the argument can be made that contrary. To think that Hashem orchestrated the hole in my sock is a bezoyin for Hashem. That Hashem is thinking about my socks. No, Hashem has a sock melech who worries about my socks. Hashem is not worried about my socks. Or you could argue that Hashem created the world and he created the laws of nature. The laws of nature are that under certain circumstances socks get holes. But did Hashem actually arrange the hole in my sock this morning? But if we understand the idea of Hisavos Timidus, idea of perpetual creation, Hashgacha Prates is muchrach. It's the obvious.
So they go hand in hand. So the perpetual creation is on everything, not just on something.
My sock was recreated at every moment. How could it be? And Hashem is recreating my sock every moment. Obviously, if now it has a hole, now it doesn't have a hole. Right now, 10 minutes ago it was created. Hashem created it. intentionally, because everything Hashem creates is intentionally,
Now he
without a
stopped
hole.
creating it.
And now,
It's not creating it.
now he created a holy sock, right? So obviously there's a reason
You don't
why.
have to create. He stopped the creation of it.
He stopped the creation of that little area. Why did he stop creating? There's a reason. If we believe in Esavos to me, this Hashgacha Pratis is an automatic outcome. It's an automatic corollary. So again, this idea of Esavos to me, this and Shari Yichid from Muna and Alter Rebbe, where in what he's taking in the direction of Achdus Hashem. There, that's the big idea he's trying to bring up. Although Hashgacha Pratis is mentioned there also. But that's not the main concept over there. Over there, Hashgacha Pratis is more of a side note. And over here, the main Nekuda he's trying to bring up. Since we say that there's Havos to me, since we say that the Eibishter is constantly recreating everything, so what does that mean? That means Hashgacha Pratis. Let's do this inside. Let's start again from Ukaneda. Again, the first one line is Mamish, page 276, around 12 lines to the bottom. Ukaneda, Masha Amar Baal Shem Tov, is all of us known what the Baal Shem Tov says, Al Pasuk Leil, Mashem Dvarcha Nitzav Hashemayim, and the Pasuk Leil, Mashem Dvarcha Nitzav Hashemayim. Shetziruf Eisiyeh, Shenivre Ben Hashemayim, the Tziruf. How do you say tziruf? The
Putting together?
tziruf of the words. No, there's a word for it. No.
Contract.
Conform the
Sreifa?
The combination?
combination of letters. Yeah, combination of letters
Make one.
with which the heavens were created. Shahu. What is that? Which letters were the heavens created with? Maimer Yehira Kiyahu. In Torah we have the words Yehira Kiyah. Hein. These very letters. The Hebrew letters, the Aleph base, which is the words Hirakia, Netzavis, Va'imdas, they stand and they remain Mulubashes, Bashamayim, they remain invested and enclosed in the heavens, La'olam forever. La'chyoisam, to keep them alive, La'kaimam, and to keep them in existence. V'la'ika ha'filosofim shakei from Hashgacha Pratis. Not like the philosophers who deny Hashgacha Pratis. That was popular, in the olden times it was popular. That back in the day, very few people denied the existence of Hashem. Because to deny the existence of Hashem, deny the existence of a first cause is insanity. It's bullshit. It's ridiculous. Yeah, no, the world doesn't have a creator. The world doesn't have a creator. I'm going to walk down Fifth Avenue, and I'm going to see a skyscraper which is 100 stories tall, and I'm going to say there was no builder, there was no architect. Just the debris over the years happened to pile up, and look what happened. We have a building with 100 floors, and with plumbing, and with wiring, and with electricity, and with windows, but there's no. It's ridiculous. The world is infinitely more exquisite than a skyscraper. And if you know the biology and the what's called ecological system, it's ridiculous. Of course, there's a creator. I saw a clip that went around recently of President Reagan, Olav Shalom. He says over there. He says, I really would like. I don't remember the exact words, but I really would. If I really like to invite. I really would like to invite my atheist friends over for a dinner. Very, very fancy dinner. A full dinner with all these courses, and after the dinner to ask them if they think there was a cook.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Did he do that?
It's a statement. In other words,
Yeah.
No idea.
but so people didn't say there is no Eibishter. They didn't say that. So what did they do? Instead, they said there's an Eibishter. The Eibishter created the world, and then
Done by himself.
Azav Hashem es haaretz. Hashem has mentioned he has more important things to do, and the world. So either the world is run by Malachim, it's run by different forces, or Hashem just created a world and set it into motion. But again, to go back to what I said earlier, that Hashem is busy, that Hashem is busy, Hashgacha Pratis, what does that mean? That Hashem decided that my socks should have holes in them this morning. That's no, that was the way it used to be in the world. That people realized that to say there is no creator is insanity. Then Baruch Hashem, we got more sophisticated and smarter and more insane. And today that people actually say there is no Eibishter, but that's, and the emes is Not getting into even the echte scientists. No scientist is really going to tell you that there is no Eibishter.
Some people just don't want the response to the implication.
They'll tell you. What do they tell you? They'll tell you.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang. Okay, but who caused the Big Bang? How did it happen? What's the original cause? The scientists do not believe the world is a cadmon. They do not believe that the world always exists. They don't believe that. So what's it? They don't know. What a scientist probably will tell you, they don't believe in the God of the Bible. Now, when they say they don't believe in the God of the Bible, what are they really saying? Also, Hashem is God. It's exactly what we're saying over here. They're denying Hashgacha Pratis. They're saying there's a creator, but they don't believe anymore in Hashgacha Pratis. And by the way, another thing is, if you don't believe in Hashgacha Pratis, you also don't believe in miracles necessarily. I'm going to daven the Eibishter is going to do a miracle, but it's ridiculous. The Eibishter created the world, left it. He left it to Chuki and Tava, he left it to the laws of nature. There's no miracles. Good. So that's what Alter Rebbe says. Not like the philosophers. That they reject the idea of Hashgacha Pratis. And in their false imagination, they compare as Maisei Hashem, the work of Hashem, creator of heaven and earth, to the work of a person and a person's machinations. For example, when a smith makes a keli, a utensil. Let's say a silversmith makes a becher, right? Shuv ein hakli tzarich lidei atzeirif. So they say, listen, take a look. Silversmith makes a becher. Silversmith doesn't have to, at every moment, be recreating the becher, right? It's there. As soon as the utensil leaves the hands of the tzarif, of the, how do you say tzarif, the smith, even though now that the smith isn't, his hands are removed from it, right? The utensil now continues to exist. So therefore, they're saying the same thing is heaven and earth. Hashem, like the silversmith, he created the world, and that's it. The world doesn't need the Eibishter anymore. We don't need Hashgacha Pratis. We don't need to say the Eibishter is every single thing is. He's arranging everything. V'toch mirei seinayim, but their eyes are covered with clay. Their eyes are stopped up, and they don't see a hevdel agadol, the tremendous difference. The difference between the action of a person, the handiwork of a person with when a person's planning. What does a person do? We don't create yesh miyayin, we create yesh miyash. When a silversmith makes a becher, he's taking a piece of silver, right? And he's turning it into an ingot, right? And he's turning it into a becher. It's yesh miyash. Rak. The only thing is, all you're doing is you're changing the form and the shape, right? So that's that. How can you compare that? That's so different. The Ma'aser Shemayim Va'aretz to the creation of heaven and earth. Shu yesh miyayin. That's yesh miyayin. You have to realize, silver. All you're doing is you're taking again the lump of silver and you're turning it into a becher. Now, are you going to tell me that the nature of silver is to be a lump and not a becher? No. Silver could be a lump, it could be a becher. So what did you do? You just changed the form from one possible form to another possible forms. And both of them, by the way, are equally viable forms for silver. As opposed to the creation of heaven and earth, which is yesh miyayin. So creating yesh miyayin is obviously a much greater feat and a much greater wonder than the splitting of the sea. What happened by the splitting of the sea? Hashem, he caused a very strong easterly wind to go the entire night, and the water split. Had that wind stopped blowing for even a moment, the waters would return to flow downwards, as is their way and as is their nature. They would not continue standing like a wall. Even though the truth is, we're saying the nature of water is that water flows downwards. Is that essential to water? No. That's an added nature that Hashem gave to water. Shaharei, and just like Hashem created water yesh miyayin, that nature also is created yesh miyayin. Shaharei chaymas avanim. You have
Water.
a wall of stones. The tzeves ma'atzma, it stands by itself. Like beliruach, without any wind. Right? Rak sheteva mayim einike. The teva of water is not that way. The nature of water. Yeah.
No?
Right. So you know what I mean? The nature of water is that it flows downwards. The nature of rocks,
Extends.
but that's the nature that it's an added
Hashem
nature that Yibster gave it.
Hashem could have made it the opposite.
Exactly. And by the way, you have to understand, science doesn't play a role in this because science doesn't explain why water flows downwards and why why rocks stand. What I mean to say by that, science examines what it is and says, "Oh, rocks stand, water flows downward." Let's examine the constitution of a rock, the atomical or whatever the chemical
The geology.
composition of it, of rocks. Then we'll examine the chemical composition of water. We examined the two of them. We know now what what water is made up. We know what rocks are made up of, and now we know that whatever water is made up out of, it flows and rocks doesn't. But they're just examining what is and explaining what is. It's not about. It could have been the other way around. Science doesn't explain why. It examines what is and then says, okay, if this is what is, they start making predictions about the future. So if I'm going to mix now water with this, in other words, but they're just studying what is. And what are they studying? They're studying the nature that Hashem gave things. But it's a nature that Hashem gave. Yeah,
Everything goes down because of gravity.
I understand. But at the end of the day, if you put up a wall of rocks, you don't need a wind to hold it up. And water, you do. Right?
You
You
need
can't make a
water.
wall of
In
water.
other words, the nature of water on rocks is different in this way.
Okay.
You know, if I take a bunch of if I take water and turn it into bricks, okay, I have water bricks,
Ice.
and I put it one on top of another, okay, not ice, water bricks, it's not going to stand. If I take normal bricks or stones, it will stand. So where's Dr. Rabbi? He's getting this. The nature of water is to flow downwards. When Hashem wanted that water should stand, in other words, he wanted to change the nature of water, even though it's an added nature. But because the nature of water is to flow downward, to make a change in nature, you need a constant force keeping it that way. Because if that wind would have gone away for even one moment,
collapsed.
the water comes crashing down. Right. How much more so when we're talking about Yesh Mi'ayin? The nature of nothing is to be nothing. That goes without saying. Did I confuse you?
No.
In fact, you can argue that that's a silly thing to say what the nature of nothing is, because if it's nothing, it doesn't have a nature. By definition. So all we can say is that for nothing to be something goes against every single rule that there is. Much more so than Kriyas Yamsuf. When Hashem goes and says, Yihirakia, boom, a heaven comes out, that's the ultimate unnatural thing that there is. So Madach, by Kriyas Yamsuf, in order to keep the water up the entire night, we needed to have a wind blowing to keep it into place. So for sure, when we're talking about Yesh Mi'ayin, we need to have the constant koyach of Hashem keeping the ayin into Yesh, as he says. The Kol Shkem Kal V'Chemer, how much more so the B'di is Yesh Mi'ayin. When we come to the creation of Yesh Mi'ayin, Shulamay Lama Teva, which is entirely higher than Teva. V'Haflu Pele Yeshem Kriyas Yamsuf, so much more wonders than Kriyas Yamsuf. Al Achas Kama V'Kama, how much more so. Shebi Stalkus Chas V'Shalom Koyach HaBeira, that if we're the Koyach of Hashem were to leave Koyach HaBeira Yesh Mi'ayin Niva, the Koyach that's creating the Koyach of Yesh Mi'ayin, if that were to leave the Nivra, the creation, Yashuv HaNivra La'ayin of Efes Mamish, the creation would return to absolute nothingness. There has to be the koyach of the poil, the koyach of Hashem, the koyach of the one who is creating in the nifal, in the creation, constantly to give a life all the kaimah, and to keep it into existence. So, for example, so everything is being constantly created by Hashem. So let's say Hashem didn't want this table to exist. What would He do?
Yes. Remove the Torah Hashem. Or the Ratzon Hashem.
Right. So the silly answer would be He would destroy it. The silly answer would be He would destroy it.
That's an alternative.
But that's a silly answer.
Why?
Because if Hashem wouldn't want it to exist, it wouldn't exist.
He would cease
So
to
why do you
maintain
explain
it.
this destruction?
He would cease to maintain.
Kol asher chafetz Hashem asa. Everything, in other words, yes, we're talking about the words of Hashem, but where do the words come from? When you speak. Why do you speak? Because you have a desire. So Hashem speaks. There's Hashem, the Ratzon, which is higher, but Hashem has the desire for the worlds. Not only the worlds in general, but every single particular thing that the word is giving energy to is coming from Hashem's Ratzon. If Hashem doesn't want it, in other words, there's no Ratzon, it doesn't exist. Simple as that. It's like if I'm in the middle of eating a meal, and I'll tell you, and what if I don't want to eat anymore? What do I do then?
Put your fork and a knife down.
I don't eat. What do I do? I don't eat. I don't have to do anything. I just don't. If Hashem doesn't want if Hashem doesn't want this table to exist, so it doesn't exist. Good. This what we're talking about. Hashem, what is this koyach? What is the koyach that we're talking about that creates everything? These are the words of Hashem, v'ruach piv, the breath of Hashem's mouth. Obviously, these are anthropomorphic terms. Shebasar mamaris, which are in the 10 mamaris, the 10 statements, shebehen nivra elam, with which the world was created. V'afilo ayrat salzu hagashmis, even this world, this physical world, even though that the pasuk says, what is the pasuk? Yehirakia, the Maimer Chazal was lo'elam Hashem dvarcha nitzav. But that's not only in heaven. Even in this physical world, and even even the inanimate. So you think inanimate doesn't have a neshama? We know a person has a neshama, an animal has a neshama, even a plant we know has to have a neshama because it's alive. But what about something that's not alive? What about a rock? It also has a neshama. Chayusan v'kayuman, kiyuman. Where is the energy in the chayis? Udvar Hashem yud ma'amaris hamlubash mehen. It has a neshama. What is that? That is the chayis of the 10 mamaris, which is in the stone. Umekaimum, which gives it existence. Liye is doimim. And daka, what is this existence? That ataka should be doimim. The yesh mi'ayin, it should be something from nothing. The yachziru la'ayin ve'efes mamish, it shouldn't return to absolute nothingness. Kishahayu, as they were before the world was created. V'zeo shomar Arizal, and this is what Arizal says, shegam bedoimim kavonim va'ofer amayim, that even in doimim, like earth and stones, and water, yes, behem bechinas nefesh, v'chayis ruchnis, they also have a nefesh and a chayis, a spiritual nefesh and a spiritual chayis.
And what is the last part that they have a nefesh of chayis ruchanias by a stone? What does that mean?
That's the Dvar Hashem from the Asar Mamaris, the words of Asar Mamaris that are in it, that are.
And that's across the board. The same as for us, same as for the table, anything.
Yeah. And we have added energy to keep us alive, but the very basic, a baseline of energy, everything has to have. Sorry, what were you saying?
How could a domain have a nefesh?
The nefesh is what keeps it in existence. That spiritual energy that keeps it in existence.
So it's not that it's not that the stone is doing something.
Not that
the
it's
stone is
alive.
acted on.
What?
The stone is acted on. As long as the stone's around, it can be acted on by Hashem, the Boreolam.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I was just putting in other words what we're learning tonight, that it's not, we have the fact that we're talking, we have a Bechira Kavshis, we can say this, we can say that, or we can say nothing at all tonight. The stone has no Bechira Kavshis, but it has, as long as the stone exists, it can be acted upon by Hashem.
It has a spiritual energy, and if it didn't have that spiritual energy in it, it wouldn't exist. It's very simple. I'm not sure you can be acted upon.
To be given the constant energy by Hashem.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been giving- yeah.
Yeah.
But
So we have.
energy. In physics, they talk about this.
Yeah, but is that really called a nefesh, though? I mean, that's...
The nefesh
That's
is
what the
like-
Arizal, that's how the Arizal describes it.
But it's a different kind.
It's a Chiddush to us. It's not the way we normally talk.
It is a chiddush, that's what I'm saying.
That's
because
the Arizal.
nefesh is connected to something that's alive. I mean,
It's a Chiddush to us, what the Arizal says.
Yeah, that's why he's saying it. That's why the Rebbe says. That's what he just said, and that's what it means, the nefesh. Now, obviously, it's a different nefesh than we have. It's not a nefesh that makes it alive. It's a nefesh that gives it existence.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, we explain the idea of Hashgacha Pratis and the idea of how Hashem's words are within everything. And next week, in Mir Hashem, we will continue further on this topic. But now,
These kind of topics were, the fact that the Baal Tanya is sending a letter out about these topics, these were, I gather that the Baal Tanya saw that these were issues, that there was a lack of a Munah and Hashgacha Prata, so he needed
See,
to.
there's a very direct reason he's doing this. The Alter Rebbe in this letter is defending a certain passage from the Tzavah Sarivash. All of this is going to lead to that passage. We read that passage 3 weeks ago. If a goy is trying to disturb you in davening, the Shekhinah is within that goy. All of this eventually is going to lead us to explaining that passage. Alter Rebbe is defending the Sefer Tzavah Sarivash, which is written by the Baal Shem Tov, because the Misnaglim put it in Cherem. That's what this letter is about. That's the goal of this letter. Okay, Hanukkah. Hanukkah is coming up.
My Hanukkah.
We have Hanukkah coming up. Yutas Kislev
Yeah.
was
Every
this
donut
past
in
week.
Latka has a nefesh, according to this.
I saw what?
Every donut in Latka has a nefesh, according to the
Absolutely.
Arizal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nee, iets
Well, donuts on latkes are tzemeach. They're not even David.
You're right.
And they have energy. It gives you energy.
And if it's a milchige latke, it's a little chayosa. Not latke, a milchige donut. Anyways, there's a word by Chassidim. They say that there are 3 Yom Tovim that are deiraisa: Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos. And there are 3 Yom Tovim that are derabana, and they are Hanukkah, Purim, and Yutas Kislev. So the 3 Yom Tov, we know that it says in Zohar that there's three things that connect each other: Eraisa, Yisrael, and Kodesh B'richu. There's the Torah, there's the Yidden, and there's Hashem. And these 3 Yom Tovim correspond to these 3. Purim was about Yisrael. He wanted to kill the Yidden. Pasha B'Gashmi wanted to kill the Yidden. There's a Hatzalah for Yisrael. Chanukah is about Eraisa. Chanukah is the Torah. As we know, that what did the Greeks want to do? Lashkicham Teirasach. They didn't want to kill us. Lashkicham Teirasach. They wanted us to stop learning Torah or to stop associating Torah with its kedusha. And Yitas Kislev is Hashem. Hashem HaYeshua. Because what is Yitas Kislev? Yitas Kislev is like Megala, the Einesh Movade in this world. Chassidus is about being Megala, the Eibishter in this world. So who's the one, Kaviyachal, who was saved on Yitas Kislev? Was the Eibishter himself. So I want to talk a little about Hanukkah. And if we have time, maybe you can also connect it back to Yitas Kislev, and it's all connected to the Perek that we're talking about. We know that the Hanukkah menorah, we light it because of the ness which happened with the menorah and the Beis Hamikdash. But the Hanukkah menorah is not the same as the menorah of the Beis Hamikdash. There are a few substantive differences. There's a difference in the number of candles. The menorah of Beis Hamikdash was 7 and our menorah is 8. There's another 2 differences, which
Didn't have
is...
Shamas, the menorah in the Mikdash.
Sorry?
No Shamas.
Okay, you say that. But the shamas is not counted from the Gufa menorah. That's not part of the mitzvah. And then you have the menorah on the Beis Hamikdash was inside the Beis Hamikdash, lit inside. And Chanukah menorah, Pesach Beisai Bachutz, right? We light it to the door out and the outside to light up the street. Another difference is when it's lit. When it's lit, the menorah of Beis Hamikdash was lit during the daytime, in the afternoon, and the mitzvah of lighting Chanukah menorah is Mishatach Shach, when it gets dark. So Chassidus, all these 3 things are connected together. 7 B'chlal is a number that corresponds to Teva, to nature.
Say it again, 7.
7 is a number that corresponds to Teva.
How?
7 days of the week, the cycle of 7. As I state, the Rashba talks about the Kli Yakar in the beginning of Parsha Shmini. He talks about the Shmini. The number 8 represents that which is higher than Teva. In the words of the Rashba, the Shomer HaHekif. The Hekif is the cycle, which is 7. 7 days, 7 years, 7 cycles of 7 years. It's because the world was created by the 7 midas. And then what's higher than that Shomer, the guarding gun above it, is the number 8. That's why the bris, for example, is associated with number 8.
Mm-hmm.
The Chanukah menorah, the oir of the Chanukah menorah is an oir which is completely beyond Teva. It's higher than Teva. It's a higher light than even the light that was made in the Beis Hamikdash. Which, by the way, that's why the neiros of the Beis Hamikdash, we don't have them today. Neiros Chanukah, even today, the believable, the infiniteness of the neiros Chanukah, even in Golos, we have the neiros Chanukah. The Ramban talks about this. The beginning of Parshas Bahaloischa. Because why did Hashem console Aaron Dafke with the menorah when all the other Nesim brought the Karbanis? And he says over there that what he was really consoling him with was with Neiros Chanukah. Ramban says that what was he when he said Shalchag Gedolim Shalhan, that yours is greater than what they have because you have the menorah The Ramban says that Hashem is talking to Aaron about the Chanukah menorah, which the Chanukah menorah the menorah was brought about by the Chashmonaim who were Kohanim. Because the light of the menorah is higher and greater than the light of the Chanukah menorah is higher than greater than the light even of the Beis Hamikdash. That's why it's lit at night and it's lit outside, because it has the koyach to light up even the darkness.
Where it says this is bigger than light?
The light of the menorah is a bigger light than
It's in English?
the light of the menorah of the Beis Hamikdash.
You said?
The Ramban, saying the Ramban parts the beginning parts of Balescha says over there the Shulchan Gedolim and Shalom is not talking about the menorah of the Beis Hamikdash. The word Chassidus, this is talked about in Bnei Yisachar. So this is it's huge, right? This idea that the Neiros of Chanukah is the ultimate, is the Eir Haganus, it's the original Eir, the greatest Eir that there is. Fragt sich the Shaila, we know that the light in the Beis Hamikdash also lit up the whole world. In fact, the windows in the Beis Hamikdash were unique, right? That they were outwards, because the Eibishter says, I need the light. No. From there, Eira went out to the entire world. And the times of the Beis Hamikdash, that light was so intense, Taka, that people from all over the world were coming to Eretz Yisrael. Malka Shva, the Queen of Shva, comes because she felt the Kedusha. She felt the light of the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. And you think about it for a second. The strongest light doesn't have to be, the sun is 93 million miles away from here. It lights up this world. Why it's so strong? It doesn't have to be here. It could be there. The light in the Beis Hamikdash was so powerful that even though it was lit during the day and even though it was lit inside, it lit up the whole world anyways. So why do we say that the Chanukah menorah is greater by the fact that it's lit at night and outside? L'chayra, the fact that it's lit at night and outside, doesn't that show that it's a weaker light? So the Rebbe talks about this in a Maimer. And the Rebbe says that the light of the menorah is substantively different than the light of the Chanukah menorah, than the menorah in Beis Hamikdash. It's a very deep idea. And the Rebbe says the light of the menorah in Beis Hamikdash was not a very, very high light. But ultimately it was light. It wasn't darkness, it was light. It was light and not darkness, it was light. And therefore it was lit in the Beis Hamikdash in a place of holiness and a place of light. It was lit during the day. And that light taka extended to the whole world. And anything that had a shaykhis to oir, anything that had a shaykhis to light, was attracted to it and came running to the Beis Hamikdash. But there is something higher than light even. Higher than Hashem's light is Hashem himself. Hashem is the source of light. Hashem is also the source of darkness. He's the source of everything. As we're learning over here. The essence of everything is only the Dvar Hashem, the word of Hashem that gives it existence. That's the light of the Hanukkah candles. Why do we put the Hanukkah candles outside, not inside? Because the Hanukkah candles, light and darkness is the same thing. It's all Holocaust. All goodness. To the Hanukkah candles, you could put it outside, light it by night. It doesn't need to be lit during the day. Because it's not even about light, it's about Hashem himself. And because it's Hashem himself, it has the ability to illuminate not only anything that has a shaykhis to light, but even darkness itself also becomes light from the Chanukah menorah. Why were we zoiche to this? Why were we zoiche to this on Chanukah? We zoiche into this because of the Mesiras Nefesh of the Chashmonaim. What happened to Chashmonaim? A crazy story of the Chashmonaim. I want you to imagine that Mayor de Blasio, no, we don't have de Blasio, now we have Adams, right? Mayor Adams and Hochul and Biden, all zusammen, they make, okay? And they make, that's it. They make a gzeira.
That's it. It's COVID time.
No more learning Torah.
Hey, come on.
Well, they're doing that.
They're trying
yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
And the Army and the National Guard are sent in to enforce it. So what would be our reaction? Would we say, every yeshiva now becomes a little army, and we wage battle against... we wage battle against... We get our guns, and we wage battle against the United States Army. Would we do that?
No, we go to Canada.
You go to Canada. Well, probably we do Stadlon.
Eretz Yisrael.
We're doing great. What's my point? we're gonna get a few thousand yeshiva bachram. I'm gonna fight the American army. It's like the most ridiculous idea in the world. Now, but think about it. That's exactly what happened.
Hashmonaim did.
You had the might of the entire Greek army, a superpower in the time, and you have a few Hashmonaim, a few brothers, and they decide, yeah, we're gonna fight them. We'll win. Like, what is that? A mission of suicide? What were they thinking? Go hide in the caves, learn Torah, go run away to Canada, try to do some stradlanus, but did you fall on your head and hit it hard? You're going to go do battle against the Greeks? Chashmonaim said, yeah, we're doing battle. And if you went to Chashmonaim and say, what are you thinking? They'll say, what do you mean? Einid Mavadi. So Teva is also godliness. If Teva is godliness, because Teva also is, everything is the Dvar Hashem, if Teva is godliness, then Al Pi Teva, we can win. They went to war.
Teva means you can't win.
No.
but
It seems that way, but
that's godliness.
it seems that way, but obviously that can't be the truth. Because again, if Teva is a Lakus, then it has to be that the Yidden and the Kedoshim and the Tahirim are going to win. So we're going to war. Mila Shamilai. They go to war, and guess what? They win. They win Al Pi Teva, they win. Why did they win Al Pi Teva? Because they were convinced that Teva also is only another instrument of Hashem, and if Teva is an instrument of Hashem, they don't need a miracle. They can win Al Pi Teva. It was that idea. Let me finish. It was that idea of the Hashmonaim, that their recognition that even that which looks like darkness is also light. Even Teva is also light. They were zoicha to the oir of the Chanukah menorah. And what's the oir of the Chanukah menorah? It's the light that you put outside. You put it on the street. You light it at night. Why? Because it's dark. Darkness is also light. Darkness is also light.
But we see.
I hear your question. I'll get it in a second.
All right.
Just to conclude, and this also is connected to Yutas Kislev, the Yom Tov we just had. Because after all, what is Yutas Kislev if not the Yom Tov, which is busy telling us what is Chassidus? The whole Nekudah Chassidus is Einid Mavadeh. Teva is a Lakus. Nes is a Lakus. Everything is a Lakus. Hashgacha Pratis. And this, we're here right now in this Leil Shishi here, connecting Yutas Kislev and Hanukkah. Really, there's a common theme. There's a common theme that they share, that both of them share, both Yutas Kislev and Hanukkah, this idea, the absolute understanding of Einid Mavadeh, which we're talking about in this parak over here, understanding that everything in the world is only Eberstein. Have a good Shabbos. I feel like Hanukkah, and we'll see you all next time.